Hi, in this tutorial, I want to show you how to render an object from imagination and how to add different light source on it, all that from imagination. Hey guys, before I start this tutorial, I just wanted to put you in context. This is one video of a huge class that I'm building called Illustration from Imagination. And in this class, I'm going to have a lot more videos like this one, different videos that talks about the different particularity of the light. And I'm going to teach students how to put light on different objects from imagination and also how to demystify really complex objects like a face, for example, and how to put light from imagination on them. Basically, it's a huge class that I'm building right now. I'm going to have a lot of different modules on it, anatomy, lighting, like I said, coloring. I'm going to touch a few things. I'm building it right now. This is a sneak peek of it, just for you today, guys. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comment if you liked it. And as usual, happy painting. All right, in this exercise, we are going to practice what we just learned about lighting, but this time we are going to take our brief and use a piece of it. Now, in the brief, you already saw there's a section with props that are in the brief that you can use for your poster, and your assignment will be to take one of those props and to create this exercise with it. In this exercise, what we're going to do is take a prop and invent a lighting scheme on it with a minimum of 2 lights on it. So it can be a key light, which is the main light, and a bounce light, or it could be a key light and a fill light, which will be just a second light basically, or you can even go with 3 light scheme if you want to. In my case, I decided to go with the Mask of the Wolf. It's the prop that I'm going to use for my poster. So as you can see, this is going to be for my exercise. But in your case, you'll be able to download this sheet if you want to try it with mine. But I would suggest for you to take something that you want to do for your own poster. If you're doing Alice in Wonderland, for example, you could go with something as easy as a cup of tea, or the pot of tea itself, or basically anything that's in the story that's considered a prop. Now, from there, I want to teach you how to do this simply, because I understand that now you just saw the exercise. You probably did the exercise already. If you didn't, you should do it before you go here. So doing the exercise with the geometric shape. And now we're going to go through something a lot more complicated, but rest assured that I'm going to break it down so you understand every part of it. The first thing you want to do when you want to put light on something is imagining it as simple as possible. And it's exactly what I'm showing you here with those 3 things. So the first thing that I do is to create just a round shape. So you can see that my mask here is very complicated. There's a lot of small things. But if I were to just simplify it, well, that would be the shape, right? It would just be like almost like an oval or like a sphere, some sort of an egg maybe. It's going to be easier for me to imagine the lighting on this. And then what you want to do is imagining with a little bit more complicated shapes. So that's the middle ground here where I added the horns, and the horns can be shapes by itself. So that's 1 shape, 2 shape. That's the big shape here. You have an edge here with a different plane, and then you have holes into the mask. Try to imagining it. Anything that you're doing like this is going to be easier for you to see the lighting. So I'm going to just break it down to you. I'm going to show you how it works. So what I'll do is I'm going to start with the very simple shape here. So imagining that I'm going to put 2 light on it. I'm going to do my first key light. I'm going to put it from, and let's say from here. So that's going to be my first light. I'm using the soft round brush. And then I'm going to put a bounce light or a second light source. It's going to come from the bottom right here. So that's going to be my 2 lights for this. So I'm going to apply that to the in-between shape, and just to show you what's the steps here that I'm going to take to do this. So I'm going to create a new layer on top of this, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to paint on the whole thing, not taking in consideration the horn for now, and paint at the bottom. And then what I'm going to have to do is create new layers for each of the shapes and forms that are there. So I'm going to create a new layer, and now I'm going to have to isolate each shapes. So I'm just going to go take that horn by itself. I'm using the pen tool here to do this, and I also have a mask on my layer to help me that does the whole thing. So I'm going to do this, make a selection, and then I'm going to create the lighting. Now I have to think about this shape in the direction of the light. Always remember, that's the one thing you want to think about. It needs to make sense with the direction of the light. So if the light were to go on this, how it would actually get lit? Well, I think that the top will have more light and the bottom less. So I'm just going to actually darken the bottom here, and that should do the trick for now, I think. There's going to be no cast shadow from the horn because the light goes on top of it directly. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other shape here. I'm going to take that and just kind of paint here. And here I might have a bigger shadow that's going to be created, a bigger form shadow that's going to be created. So I might just put it just a little bit darker here. I might also just going back to that horn here, thinking about just maybe the corner here should have a little bit more light, a bit more shadow maybe on that angle. Not too much. Just a bit more like this. All right. Now I'm just going to do that plane right here. That plane is going to be a little bit more in the shadow because it's turning away from the light. So I'm just going to do the same thing here, taking the saffron brush and just make it a bit darker. Now I have holes here in the mask, in the final mask. This is a total hole, but here I'm just going to imagine it's like a hole that I can see, that I don't see through. So it's just a hole in the form itself. So I'm going to first do the selection, and I'll do the selection of the two eyes, socket, and the nose at the same time. So now we'll be done. And creating that selection now, and on a new layer. Now the light is going there, which means that this is a hole, so the light is going to bounce here, and that's going to be in the shadow, right? Because that's the top of it. So understand that. I'm going to do the same thing here. So that's going to be in the shadow, and that's going to be a little bit more in the light. And same thing for this one. Shadow. Oops, and light. Okay, I won't go right now adding the occlusion shadows and the highlights for now, but this is making me understand a little bit more what I'm supposed to do on this shape. So I did those two just to give you an example on how to break it down. You want to make sure that every shape is by itself. On this one, we'll make the transition between the horn and the skull. But for now, I just wanted to show you that. So now I'm gonna tag in with this one, and you'll understand how I start at the beginning. I'm gonna finish the whole thing. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm on the right layer. I don't know what's that. Oh, just delete that for now. Oops, I think I'm on the wrong layer. That's why. Yes. Okay, so this one. So I'll make sure to create a layer. I'm going to fill it up with some gray. Take my saffron brush, and I'm going to start again by adding on the basic shape, the basic light. So I'm going to have some light coming up from here and then from the bottom here, right? That's good enough. Create a new layer. Do the same thing with the horns. So I'm just going to take the horn here and create the shape of that horn. Make a selection. And now the light we established earlier, that's going to give it a little bit more shadow here, maybe a bit more light here, a bit more shadow at the bottom, and a tiny bit darker, maybe right here. That's going to be good. Then I'll do the second horn. Same thing, taking my time, taking each shape one at a time. I'm going to put my light here, and then we establish that maybe we'll have a stronger form shadow because this is far away from the light source. There you go. And Now I have to do the same thing for each shape. So here I have a piece here. Obviously under that is going to create some shadow. So I'm just gonna just do the form here. And I'm doing this before I'm taking out the lines. I'm establishing the basic shadows. So right there. Also, as the mask is turning away from the light, just right here, that's going to create a shadow in here, probably in that corner too. So I'm going to round that up. Maybe this is going to create on this piece right here a cast shadow. So this part here is creating a cast shadow on this one. So I'm going to paint that here. And then I'll make sure to also create the light as the same thing that you have on the top here. So right there, that's going to turn away slowly. So it's going to be a gradation in between those two. It's good enough for now. Then I'm going to go here and paint the shadow that comes in here. That's going to get a little bit light. I'll paint the shadow inside the eye socket right here. I might have another cast shadow. So the cast shadow, you have to make sure that the hard edge is there, right? I'm going to cover a little bit more of that in the next section of the course, but for now, so you can imagine that the whole head here is giving a cast shadow on this. So that's the eye socket, let's say that's the cast shadow of the eye socket right there. That's good enough for now. And I'm just going to paint with a saffron brush the teeth a little darker here. All right. Now I'm going to have to establish the same thing for the other light source that comes from the bottom, right? So I'm just going to slowly think, all right, maybe there's a little bit more light that hit here. I'm going to have some edges later, but I'm going to wait until I take out the lines for now. I'm just going to establish. I think that's the only thing. So for right now, I think that's the base. That's good. I'll be able to now start taking out the lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them at an opacity that's a little bit lower. I want to keep them as a reference, but I'll paint on top of them. And then I'm going to create the layer on top of it. And at this point, once I have my basic, you can continue with the saffron brush and just normal brush. I like to take something with a little bit of texture in it, so it helps me just rendering some cool stuff. One thing, now that I have two light source, I need to make sure that they are both expressed, and also the bounce light. The objects itself, like this, wait, I'm going to take another brush to show you that. The bounce light that comes from here is going to bounce back on, whoops, I'm going to put that on top so you can see. It's going to bounce on the bones here, right? So this light is going to bounce back, which means that I'm going to have probably like a little bit of light that comes from there here. Maybe just a tiny bit, and that's good to add. So I'm going to think about those things as well when I'm rendering the mask. So I'm just going to add actually just that right here. So imagine that this is a bit of bounce light that comes from the bottom. And I'm going to add an occlusion shadow. So at this point, all the steps that I showed you, I'm not going to follow them one by one. I'm going to bounce back from occlusion shadow from time to time, then rendering, and then rethink if my terminator is at the right place. Basically, once you know the step, you can play a little bit with them and just make sure that it makes sense. It's really just taking your time and doing some observation, getting darker at some places. It's really important. We're going to cover a little bit more that in the rendering when we'll talk about range of values and everything. But for now, I'm just going to try my best to follow the steps as much as possible. So yeah, so I'm going to continue here because I got lights coming from the bottom here. Probably that this here is going to have just a little bit of a line of light just right there. It's going to bounce from there. Same thing with the nose right about here. that edge is going to receive some light that comes from back. So that's are considered almost like highlights. Like you can see I'm putting the highlights a little bit early here, but that's okay. Then I'm thinking here, this is going to be a little bit in the dark, but then because the light is coming down on it, that should be a little bit lighter. Just like that. And so on and so forth. I might just add a little bit more of a highlight right here. And slowly but certainly it's going to start rounding up. So really at this point, you just have to try to not zoom in too close. Like right now I'm probably too close. I should probably get back a little bit just to be able to see the whole lighting scheme better. I think that like this. Whoops, I'm going to take the other brush and just bring those two together. There you go. And yeah, really at this point, you just want to take your time. Make sure that you have everything. I think Occlusion Shadow will help really to form. Like right now, there's places that they need to be darker. It's going to make sure that the value are correct. So I'm just going to add that dark part here, dark part there too. And then just make sure that my edges are sharp at the right places. Another thing that's going to help a lot when you're doing a light scheme like that is the background. Adding just a flat background like this is not helping right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a layer at the back of everything with the soft round brush. And I'm just going to establish that if there's light from the... Actually, you know what? The best trick that I can give you for this is make sure that you have contrast. So right now, I got light at the top. So adding dark is going to help, and light at the back. So it's going to help to establish those two things. And just that is going to be good enough. And then what you can do is just design it a little bit by deleting some parts like this and creating a vignette basically with this background. So just something really easy to be able to just establish. It's going to look better like this. And then I'm just going to continue here, trying to slowly render this. But I keep always in mind the direction of the light. Where's the light supposed to hit? Where it's supposed to be darker, etc., etc. Right now, I'm just going to use every tool to make disappear the lines slowly. Right there. Now there's a transition to make here. I don't want this, so I'm going to use the smudge tool to just smudge those two together. There we go. And I'm probably going to have to add some highlights closer to here, like it's bouncing there, maybe a little bit on the horn as well. Maybe just adding a darker part here. So it's really taking your time, always thinking about the direction of the light and rounding up that shape. The same steps we saw in the previous exercise are used here, but I just bounce them from the place that I am, basically. Instead of following them in a linear way, I just take my time and see what I can do. But always asking myself, is my lighting at the right place? Like right now, I'm thinking, all right, if the light is coming from down here, is this should be like that? Or it should be just a bit bigger, maybe? And then trying to blend it correctly. Also making sure that you have occlusion shadows at a few places. That's going to help round the whole thing. That's what I'm trying to do here. Making sure that you have places that are dark enough. Using the full potentials of your values. Right there. And then continuing. Now, right now, I think the one thing that I see that I could just paint a little bit more is the teeth. So when it comes to the teeth here, I'm going to have a shadow where that shape is turning away from the light. So I'm just going to establish that shadow here. And then I'm going to use a saffron brush again to just round up those ones. This is very far, so I won't. It's very far from both light source. Maybe a little bit of this one is going to bounce, the one from the back. So maybe this one is going to be actually more bright than this one. I'm still going to add a little bit of this, rounding up like that. And as it's going far away from the light source, it's going to get dimmer and dimmer. And the closer it gets, the brighter it will. That's too dark. So beside the steps that I gave you, there is no secret really beside just taking your time and always repeating those same steps inside your head, which means, all right, am I following the light direction? Does that light direction make sense when I'm looking at the whole thing? And making sure I have the bounce light on my second light source is also established correctly. And slowly taking your time like this. Like right now, this hedge that I'm adding is because of the light source that's at the bottom, I mean. But maybe that's even too bright. Maybe it's too far from the light source to be that bright. And then I can just continue here. At this point is really just taking your time. I'm gonna just make the whole video just a little bit more fast. Basically, you want to put as much time as you want. You want to establish the light source. Always remind yourself of the steps of the recipe to be able to put any kind of lighting that you want. Think about the direction of the light. Very, very important. But really at this point, there is no secret but practice. And that is not something that can be taught. It's only something that you can just take the time to do. As long as you're repeating those steps and you remind yourself of the direction of the light and you try to render it by taking your time and thinking about bounce light, and you want to think about the direction and the shadows and occlusion shadows, all those things, and the highlights, you're going to see any form taking place on your canvas. It looks like magic. Really, really, really. You're going to have a lot of fun doing this. Here I decided to add a third light, which is a sort of a kind of a backlight. So it's kind of going to give a feel that it's like backlit from a light that's behind the mask. And that's it. That's it for this one. I'm not going to push it more than that. So that's going to be your assignment, guys. So you can actually download this sheet if you want to try to do the mask. You can download this sheet below this video and give it a try. I'm also going to give you an example of masks that I already created before this, where I see different lighting. Maybe I pushed a little bit more those. You don't have to push them as much as this. This is really your first time to trying this, so you know, don't be too hard on yourself. Adding light is going to be something you're going to get better with time. For now, just try to take something, a prop from your poster, something that you liked, you would like to illustrate, and give it a try. Try to add at least 2 different lighting on them. And once you did that, in the next video, what I'm going to show you is how to add different lighting on a human face. And I'm going to demonstrate that there's actually patterns that can be followed, so it's not that super complicated. So really excited stuff. Have fun with this one, and I'll see you in the next one with the human face and how to put different lighting on it. So here you go, guys. I hope you find this tutorial really helpful. If you want to have all the information, like I said, you can join the waiting list for the actual class illustration from Imagination. I'll put the info once again in the description of this video. I'm also going to give you the actual exercise sheet that comes with this tutorial. Usually they would be only locked inside the actual program, but as a thank you for watching this video, I'm going to give it to you so you'll be able to follow along as well. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and to subscribe if you want to see more of them. And today I would like to know, what is the most difficult thing for you to paint from Imagination? Let me know in the comment below, and as usual, happy painting.